President Biden will host the first Quad leaders meeting at the White House on September 24. Prime Minister Morrison, along with the Indian leader Narendra Modi and the Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, will attend the conference in person. Let's get some analysis with former National Security Advisor at the Australian Embassy in Washington, now National Security Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mark Watson. Mark, how significant is it that the Quad, or in its longer form, the quadrilateral security dialogue, how important is it that it's been elevated to a leaders level meeting?
It's very significant, Kieran. The previous administration under Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State clearly recognised the significance and value of the grouping, but they didn't hold a leaders meeting such as this. And I think it has special significance for Australia insofar as this grouping really was the first group that gave Australia some backing, something that sent a message to China: Australia's not won out in our current problems there. It's also very important to the US at this stage. As your previous story just noted, this administration is really getting a hard time over the way it exited Afghanistan. So being able to host a function such as this, a meeting such as this, demonstrates that the US isn't vacating the stage, that it is going to stay engaged in Indo-Pacific in particular, and is not retreating back behind its borders. So I think there's a real opportunity here for the administration to send a clear message to countries in our region.
And when you look at the four leaders or those countries, we're talking about some countries that have an even, I guess from Australia's perspective, we think that the China relationship and the difficulties, it can be all about us, but actually you think about India, they had full-on clashes on their border with China, and there's a territorial dispute over many decades, with, if not centuries, with Japan in terms of the Senkaku Islands, or the Diaoyu Islands as the Chinese call it.
That's correct. Australia obviously is suffering the brunt of Chinese economic coercion, but India, people died in the border conflict. It's a rather nasty, small border conflict in the high Himalayas, but, troops on both sides died. So, the relations between China and its neighbours can get very difficult very quickly. And as you say, Japan has had an ongoing dispute around territorial issues in the East China Sea. So, again, a very significant grouping, one that's only grown in significance. Some people originally thought this might have been a toothless tiger because there's no actual treaty, there's no formal instrument that established this. It's not a military alliance, it's just an alliance of like-minded people who have agreed on a set of principles for our part of the world.
Mark, my understanding is that the Prime Minister and President agreed to a one-on-one as well in the Oval Office in the days leading up to next week's Quad. That is expected, really, for an Australian Prime Minister. You go to Washington, you get a bilateral meeting.
Absolutely. It'd be very unusual if that didn't occur. Of course, one of the issues that I think the President will introduce probably to the quadrilateral meeting as well as the bilateral meeting is the issue of climate change and how we're going to address that. There is a difference of emphasis between Australia and the US quite clearly. So to me, it's a racing certainty that the President will raise it with the Prime Minister, not least because not long after this, they'll be going to Glasgow for the World, if you like, Climate Change Conference, the COPs meeting in Glasgow in November. So I think that will be on the agenda as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it is a point of difference within the alliance framework. But at the moment, you've got the defence and foreign ministers there for AUSMIN leading into those discussions next week. It's a pretty important time in the alliance, isn't it? 70 years, the anniversary this month, in fact.
Absolutely. And this meeting of the two ministers from Australia and their counterparts in the US really comes at a critical time. Australia, as we know, and we've discussed many times, is really feeling the pinch from China. And having a US administration that is prepared to go public and with its support for Australia is very significant. Also significant, I think, is the fact that this issue of climate change has really transitioned out of solely being an environmental issue and is now firmly on the world security, the strategic security agenda, whether it's concerns around mass migration of climate refugees, or much more pressingly, I believe, the issue around sustainable water supplies. You know, 4 of the great rivers in Southeast Asia rise in the high Himalayas, either inside China or adjacent to China, and flow through. Water is going to be a major issue to do with climate change, and it spills over very quickly into national security issues.
National Security Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mark Watson, thank you for your insights as always.
Thanks, Kieran.